Hello everyone, and welcome to our team's presentation. We will discuss a solution to the European dilemma of spelling unity without accountability, in particular by amending Article 7 of the Treaty of the European Union in order to enable the European Parliament to bind membership to the upholding of Copenhagen criteria. The famous writer Umberto Eco once said that it is culture, not war, that cements European identity. Considering the historical background of the EU, this sentence does underline the visionary and noble aim of the European project. However, we believe that the strength of the EU actually relies upon its values. In particular, European identity is based on a set of core values that are shared among all member states. In practice, these values are represented and embedded in the Copenhagen criteria. These criteria were established in 1993. They are assessment principles used in order to determine whether a candidate country can be awarded with EU membership or not. They are divided into three categories: political criteria, economic criteria, and administrative and institutional capacity. More specifically, when checking the compliance with the political criteria, the European Commission analyzes if the candidate country there are stable institutions guaranteeing democracy, the respect of the rule of law, and the respect of human rights. Instead, when checking the economic criteria, the candidate country must have a functioning market economy capable of coping with the competitive pressures that come with joining the single market of the EU. And finally, in terms of administrative capacity, the candidate country will have to incorporate the acquis communautaire and adhere in legal terms to the various political, economic, and monetary aims of the EU. The paradox with these criteria is that although compliance is required throughout the application process, after the candidate has fully become a member state, it is no longer obliged to meet the standards set by the criteria. The underlying assumption is that the EU membership, with all the related economic and cultural benefits, would be enough to ensure that a candidate country would keep respecting those values. However, it is now obvious that the assumption has proven to be false. As a matter of fact, member states have repeatedly infringed Copenhagen over time, both with sporadic violations such as Moria refugee camp in Greece, as well as systematic violations, such as violations to the rule of law in both Hungary and Poland. The problem with these misbehaviors is that they are contrary to European core values, and thus they can be devastating for the future of the EU, precisely because they entail a potential loss of identity at European level. But why do these violations take place? There are two main factors that allow member states to misbehave. The first one is that there is no system in place for the European Union to reassess compliance with Copenhagen criteria after the country's accession. Secondly, the unanimity rule in the Council makes it relatively simple for a member state to form a coalition with other member states and thus block any potential sanction following its misbehavior. This is where Article 7 of the Treaty of the European Union becomes relevant. It is in fact a legal provision that lays out the procedures to be followed in case of a breach of fundamental European principles. And in particular, the modalities of such procedures are described in Article 354 of the Treaties of the Functioning of the EU. However, Article 7, as we have seen, has proven to be an ineffective instrument because of two reasons. Firstly, because it requires unanimity or quasi-unanimity in the Council, and secondly, because it triggers very disruptive sanctions and thus strongly disincentivizes its use. Having clearly identified the problem, we decided to base our solution on the amendment of Article 7 and the related Article 354 by implementing a twofold policy change. Firstly, we believe that the assessment of members' compliance with the criteria should be carried out on a continuous basis, and secondly, the European Parliament should be given power to activate an infringement procedure directed towards any member state found in violation of Copenhagen criteria.
The steps of the infringement procedure. If a country results to be deliberately and seriously infringing either democratic principles, human rights, or the market economy, the EU Parliament might decide to trigger the state of infringement against this member state. For the infringement procedure to begin, it is necessary that the violation of the Copenhagen criteria is certified both through a European Parliament and the European Council vote, respectively through simple majority and qualified majority vote. The process then works like a trial, in which the accused member states clarifies to the Parliament the situation regarding the violation of the Copenhagen criteria. The EU Parliament therefore acts like a jury. At the end of the trial, the EU Parliament decides whether the country is found guilty of a violation or not through absolute majority. In case the member state is found guilty, this decision should be confirmed by the EU Council as well through QMB. The initialization of the procedure does not entail any penalization immediately. Nevertheless, the country must present an improvement plan within a limited time frame and must act to right the wrongs that have been observed during the trial phase. The Parliament has to approve the plan along with the Council, and at the end of the time frame period, a renewed assessment is made. If the member state fails to meet the criteria again, Parliament may vote to extend the time frame and also escalate penalties with the approval of the Council. At each one-year iteration, penalties may escalate in seriousness. So the first time we can extend the time frame by 1 year and maybe apply a reduction of EU funds destined to the country in that period. After 2 years, the period is extended with full suspension of funds, and 3 years, the period is extended with disenfranchisement of voting rights within the Council for the member state. A further step, which we think is a kind of an extreme scenario, is that if the country is still deliberately as well as seriously violating the criteria, it would be possible to expel this member state. To do so, we would need an absolute majority in Parliament and unanimity in the Council. The unanimity rule is retained here to make the event of an actual expulsion of a member state a very remote possibility. The retainment of the unanimity at this final stage would somehow represent compromise with respect to the current Article 7 procedure, since complete deletion is avoided. Implementing an institutional infringement procedure within the EU is recommended, as it would deny the possibility for member states to find support in the EU Council to avoid any consequences related to the infringement of fundamental European values, as we're seeing is happening in present day. It would also partially shift the decision-making power from the Council to the Parliament, and it would work as a deterrent to behave according to the Copenhagen criteria for member states. An alternative, potential drawbacks of our treaty reform are that member states could be reluctant to transfer additional powers to the European Parliament and to be accountable to the Parliament for their actions. Member states could also use the existence of such infringement procedure to foment an anti-EU sentiment within their national territories. What could be an alternative to a reform then? Amending Article 7 by substituting the unanimity rule with qualified majority vote regarding internal sanctions, with the exception of the expulsion of a member state. However, this substitute policy would fail to provide the EU Parliament with the possibility of making its voice heard and giving it a more center stage role in these procedures. Why did we choose this treaty reform? We chose this treaty reform because we believe that the respect of rule of law strongly affects the future of the EU. In fact, violations of democratic principles do not just concern member states where they take place, but they shake the very foundations of the European project. Disrespect of the rule of law could undermine the principle of mutual trust among member states, potentially having repercussions in mutual recognition between judicial systems. Because also, differently from other reforms that are also necessary in the EU, treaties are truly standing in the way of progress for what concerns the rule of law. As of now, the Article 7 of the Treaty of the European Union is a deadlock representing a tremendous danger for the EU as a value-based entity and credible global leader. Thank you for your attention. We hope that it was an inspiring presentation and that you liked our idea.